It is March the 20th. My guild, Humble, has recently slain Mythic ZOTH a few days ago. Just missing our goal of Hall of Fame, unfortunately. But this is the final commentary video going over the Mythic ZOTH fight from a Windwalker perspective. It's a doozy. It's a long fight. If you think this is the kind of fight where you'll enjoy it, it's a very long progression, you'll enjoy it, learn about your friends, and have a good time, you'd be wrong. This fight is an abysmal, hardship-laced, nightmare fuel of a fight that makes you just loathe it the longer you progress on it, and makes you wonder why you still raid. But anyways, on a more positive note, let's get into it. So the first things first, I went through a lot of iterations of how I wanted to approach this fight from Windwalker's perspective. So the first thing you're going to notice here, top left of the screen, I'm using the Evoke Anguish talent instead of hit combo on this fight. Now you're going to ask, J-Funk, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? As you watch the video, you'll start to realize what I started to realize in this fight is that this fight is filled with situations that pop up that are 3 target burst cleave scenarios, in which Invokes When is it's Invokes When's niche. It's what it's built for. It's what it's designed to excel in. The Lightning Cat comes to glory in this fight compared to where he usually is. Additionally, you'll notice that there is a tremendous amount of downtime in this fight where you are doing mechanics where you can't necessarily hit the boss, and having to keep hit combo up during that could be kind of a pain. Doable for sure. People, the other Windwalker at the time of this kill who killed this fight, publicly logged, used hit combo. But personally, I don't see the merit of it comparatively, and I think that Invokes When is probably the strongest. Other than that, it's a pretty standard setup. I do use the Vision and Perfection Miner instead of Confident Strife. The reasons being very similar to why I ran Invokes When. A lot of downtime, possible to drop the buff. Additionally, the cooldown reduction from Vision and Perfection Miner helps out a lot in this fight, as you will see. So we'll start out this fight. We're going to start out. We pre-pot. We're going to pre-pot. We're going to pop our Arcane Torrent because we're a Blood Elf and we're a superior race. We can do that. We're going to start with 1 Chi. We're going to Chi Burst, go up to 3 Chi. And then we're going to use a Invokes When on these Basher tentacles here. Basher, Corruptor, and Spike. Luckily, the tentacle spawns can be kind of RNG of where the Spike tentacle can spawn on this first one, but luckily we have a close tentacle spawn. Excellent, we're off to a great start. So we're going to use Invokes When. We're going to position him so that he stands just in range of the Spike tentacle, so that he's zapping it periodically. Then we're going to use the rest of our cooldowns at the start here, because we're going to want to use our cooldowns in the next set of our next TOD that we use will be on the first Vuln phase in about 2.5 minutes. We're going to hold our TOD for a little bit. But as you see, there comes the first Paranoia. I am linked with Sammy's, one of our mages. Now, I think the onus is probably on the mage here. Now, historically in our progression, I was pretty bad at doing this mechanic and actually going to people, and instead of going to people, I would like target them if they're running towards me. Like, well, they were like a wheelchair class that didn't have as much mobility as me. I would target them, give them Tiger's Lust, make them feel good about themselves. Like, oh, you're coming to me, you're doing it, you're awesome. But really, I was just staying on the tentacle so I could hit it. Well, when it comes to mages, it's a bit weird because we both have burst mobility tools. He can use Shimmer to come towards me, and I can use Roll to come towards him. And what would happen sometimes with mages is that he would Shimmer to me, then I'd roll and go through him, and then it would just create an awkward situation, and we would be like, oh, who's going to come to who? So to reduce that amount of chaotic moments, I just stopped rolling, generally speaking, towards mages, unless I could tell that their Shimmer was down and they were just going to RP walk towards me. So, match with Sammy's, it's the beginning of the fight. I'm almost certain that he has Shimmer charges still left, so he's going to blink towards me onto this tentacle. He doesn't blink at all. He just walks towards me. But I'm going to keep hitting this Corruptor Tentacle as best I can. We're going to kill the Corruptor Tentacle, and now for 8 seconds until this sorry, for 11 seconds until this next Basher Tentacle spawns on this timer here, we are holding our dick and looking at N'Zoth. You're going to notice that there are a lot of these blood pools that are spawning. The blood pools spawn as a result of any tentacles dying. If you stand in those blood pools, you're going to lose sanity and take tremendous amount of damage. You don't want to bathe in blood. It's bad. Okay, so next up, there's a gateway here. You can take the gateway if your mobility kind of sucks. Additionally, you're going to notice that everyone in my raid is turned into a corgi. That is because I've used the overtuned corgi goggles. There's no reason to do this. You don't have to do it. It was a mistake to do it when I did it. Don't use this overtuned corgi goggle. It's very bad. Because then you can't tell which person is which because they're all little dogs. You're going to see that I Tiger's Lust one of our healers, my Ixie, because I'm a nice person. I'm a nice person. He doesn't have the mobility that everyone else has. I know that he's going to the set of tentacles that I am not going to. He has to run all the way around the boss to get to the boss. I want him to get there. So I'm going to Tiger's Lust him, and then I'm going to roll over here, and I'm going to throw a Chi Burst to hit this Basher Tentacle. This Basher Tentacle spawns in exactly the same place every single time, but his buddy, the Corruptor Tentacle, can spawn in many different locations, some of which are way better, and some of which are way worse. The best spawn that you can get is the Corruptor Tentacle is almost on top of the Basher Tentacle, allowing the melee to cleave both at the same time. We get kind of a bad luck here, and we don't get the greatest spawn on this tentacle. Blizzard, if you're listening, please remove the spawn RNG of these tentacles. It is unneeded RNG in this fight that doesn't make any sense why it exists. But anyways, we want to focus on this Basher Tentacle because in about 8 seconds we're going to be making our way to the first Mind Gate and doing the first Psychus phase, which I am involved in. Now, the Psychus phase is pretty similar to Heroic, but a little bit more difficult because you don't have as many people in the Psychus phase. And Psychus has more HP, and additionally, there will be these ads down there called Psychophages. You see them there? They look like little shadow fiends. So these guys are quite annoying. So what they're going to do is they're going to go towards the current highest threat target that they have, and once they get into melee range of that target, they're going to cast something called Devour Thoughts. Devour Thoughts is a big 8-yard AoE spell that if upon completion of the cast, if you are standing in the area of effect, will do AoE damage to you. Sorry, excuse me. Will do damage to you and reduce your sanity by about 5 to 10, I believe, maybe more. Additionally, when these ads die, they explode, doing a smaller explosion that if you stand in that, guess what? You lose some sanity, take some damage. Fortunately for us, these ads are able to be completely crowd controlled, but interestingly enough, they are PvP flagged, which means that any CC that you apply to these psychophages will have the PvP duration. I gotta remember to breathe here. So we're gonna use our Flying Serpent Kick to get to this first synapse very quickly. This is very important. You want to have Flying Serpent Kick here. It feels really bad to have to Tiger's Lust and walk to this guy, run to this guy. Flying Serpent Kick has the perfect length for you to reach the synapse and start DPSing it. Now the first thing I'm going to do, depending on how much chi that I have upon reaching the synapse, I'm going to use a Tiger Palm, a Chi Burst, and then I'm going to enter my Storm Earth and Fire. My Storm Earth and Fire should just be coming off cooldown, and I'll be at 2 charges almost exactly once I reach the synapse. That's why I'm using a charge here. Additionally, we want these synapses to die quickly, which was a problem for us, so I'm going to be killing them as fast as possible. Now, let me try to explain the Psychus phase from a Windwalker perspective. So how does the Psychus phase work? Every time that you kill one of these synapses, when the Psychus is near it, about 10 yards close to it, he will gain a buff that causes him to take 50% increased damage taken for 20 seconds. Now, we're going to kill about 8 of these, so he's going to be taking 400% damage. Now, if you know anything about Windwalker monks, Windwalker monk has an ability called Touch of Death, which stores 10% of the damage that you deal for 8 seconds, and then does that damage plus 35% of your maximum HP at the end of it as damage. When a mob like Psychus that takes more damage, it causes you to double dip on this benefit, which makes it by far the best spell to purely kill Psychus. Now you may think, okay, this spell is amazing. You're going to be using it to kill the Psychus here. No. We found that during our progression that I didn't need to use Touch of Death on Psychus in order to kill him fast enough. So theoretically, if you don't have a fire mage in your group, in order to kill Psychus, which, I mean, you probably have a fire mage in your group, then you could Titch of Death Psychus and it'd be perfect for you. I think Windwalker Monk is an excellent substitute for killing Psychus, like a replacement to kill Psychus instead of fire mage. But this phase isn't much going on, so you're gonna see Sherwin uses stun there because we want to avoid the Devour Thoughts. I'm going to keep in mind, look at the action tracker in the bottom right of the screen. You're gonna see me fixate my spirits a lot in this phase to make sure that they're attacking the synapses, because those spirits will go wherever the fuck they want to go. So we kill that synapse. I'm going to fixate my spirits again. They're going to jump over here, hopefully, and then we're going to use the end of SCF bug to get a spinning crane kick. What is the end of SCF bug real quick? If you use a spell at the end of SCF, about a second or less left on it, the spirits will cast the spell and then return to you as your debuff is falling off. That is lowering your damage and splitting it into each of the 3 spirits. So as they're casting the spell, the buff fades, and then you're doing 100% damage per spirit instead of 45% for this brief moment in time. That's what I'm doing there with Spinning Crane Kick. Okay, second synapse is dead. So on this third synapse here, we had like a CC order kind of thing. We're going to use Ring of Peace on these Psychophages, but first, this is the first Psychophage's kind of gimmick, is Deathwing is in the air. You may not have noticed this, but Deathwing's in the air. So as a result, he's going to start, every so often, he's going to spew this cataclysmic flames on the ground. If you get hit by these flames, if you stand in them, you will get disoriented for 6 seconds, which causes you to lose sanity. But it can be dispelled by magic. So a healer can dispel you if you make a mistake. But ideally, don't stand in that. Generally speaking, these flames will be pointed towards where the current location of players are, but there will be also random flames that will just be landing across the arena as well. Okay, so I'm going to Ring of Peace here to knock the Psychophages back to give melee the time to kill the synapse. Additionally, oh, sorry, let me go back here real quick. Additionally, during Cataclysmic Flames, you will just lose sanity over the course of the fight. Like, I think it's 25 sanity. You will just lose sanity, and you can't control it and take damage, so that will happen as well. But Ring of Peace, so Psychus himself casts this ability called Mind Rack that is interruptible, and you need a 6-man interrupt rotation in order to interrupt every cast of it. I am assigned to the 6th interrupt, so here I am going to be interrupting this one. Now, one thing I started to do late during Prague is I noticed that this interrupt was kind of tough for me to get because these Psychophages are working their way up towards us, slowly but surely. And I want to get over there and deal with these Psychophages and still get the interrupt, because sometimes the interrupt was later, sometimes it was earlier. I want to make sure I get this consistently. So as a result, what I would do is I would save my leg sweep, which lasts 5 seconds on these guys, as they're grouped up here, so I can get the interrupt. So the boom, interrupt, stun, move on to the next one. Make sure you watch out for those 2 rogue Psychophages. They're going to come out and start attacking. We kill that synapse, great. I move on to the next one, kill this one. Now, we are going to pretty much done with this phase. We're going to kill the 7th synapse here, move on to the 8th. This is the last synapse that we're going to kill in this phase before we go all out on Psychus. Okay, we kill this one. I'm going to use Invoke Zwen here, and I'm going to tell him to attack Psychus. And then I'm going to just hit the boss. Hopefully, you kind of, so as a loadout thing, I do use a Diver's Folly in my offhand in this fight, purely because of this phase. You kind of just hope that you get a Diver's Folly proc during this phase and during this point where he's taking 400% bonus damage. Because if you can carry that Diver's Folly damage into ny'alotha, that is huge boss damage for free, making Diver's Folly a great choice for an offhand in this fight. So we're going to kill him. And once we kill him, we have to click on our bodies to return back to the normal realm, and this will be the first vuln phase. Unfortunately, we're a little bit late. You ideally want to kill Psychus in the first phase around 229. 229 exactly is the perfect time, because it is right before he starts casting this Eternal Torment, which will stun him and prevent this cast. But we were a little bit late, so he's going to cast his Eternal Torment. It's not the biggest deal. It just ends up being a little bit more raid damage, but our healers can manage. And I'm going to use all my cooldowns here and just blast the boss through the standard rotation. I'm going to use both charges of SCF here, and you're going to notice that I'm going to send the second set of spirits over to the left side of Tentacles, because 2 sets of tentacles are about to spawn, and I'm going to be going to the right side, and I'm going to send my spirits over to the left side. So we end up getting him to about 85.5 here. That's pretty good. It's pretty good for first phone. I'm going to roll over to these tentacles here. I'm going to fix it my spirits, tell them to go over to the other set of tentacles, and I'm going to do the Whirling Dragon Punch, end of SEF bug again on my spinning crane kick, which causes it to do more damage. You see in the corner there. One side effect here is that the Mystic Touch debuff that is applied by the Stormwrath and Fire clones will expire once they expire. So you see here on my boss frames in the corner here, they don't have Mystic Touch applied to them because that's the SEF spirits were the unit that applied it, so that unit is now expired, so that debuff is now gone. But I'm going to cast Fist of Fury, and we're going to get the second Paranoia here. The first Paranoia of this up phase. I get matched with just a Corgi, who is in fact just a Corgi. And he moves over to me, and we're going to DPS this, bash her down, and kill the Corruptor as well. And then we're going to move on over to the next set of tentacles that are about to spawn in about 3 seconds. While the other team of players on the other side of the boss are going to their set of tentacles. And then once that other side of the boss team kills their tentacles, they're going to go down into the Mine Gate for Psychics 2, while me and the other, like Team 1, are going to stay up and clear out the tentacles and do the up phase. So, just going to DPS this Basher tentacle down, focus it down, make sure it dies. Not much else to say right here. Just try to cleave as best as possible. You can use Diffuse Magic on this Internal Torment right here, and I kind of went back and forth on using it depending on where my health pool was at. But here's a second Mine Gate. After this Mine Gate, we're going to get this third set of ads that we have to deal with. So I'm going to use a Flying Serpent Kick to get over here, because this is where I'm going to use my third Invoke Zwen cast on these guys, along with SCF and my Blood of the Enemy charge, in order to get big damage in this part. Luckily, I get a Dragon proc on my cloak. Also mix here to fixate your spirits, because your spirits in this phase will jump to NY'alotha, who's taking 99% reduced damage, and they're just going to whack them for no reason. Like, they'll just do that. So make sure you fixate them and make sure that you control them. We're going to kill these guys, and then we're going to get some Psychophage spawns. We got to kill that. But very shortly, the upstairs phase, Team 1 is going to get their first Paranoia Mindgrass combo. So you're going to see some neurons spawn at about right now. I'm going to paralysis that neuron. If you use CC on the neurons before they do their cast, which takes about 5 seconds to do after they spawn, they will not do that cast, which makes it so that you have much more room to work with in this phase. So you can banish these neurons, you can paralysis them, you can freezing trap them, you can blind them. It makes it really easy to deal with this phase. I always used paralysis on that far left one, just so people had more room to the left to work with. But after I paralysis that, I'm just going to work on trying to kill this neuron. If the Psychophages get close to me, then I'll probably deal with them. Here comes the first Paranoia. I'm going to match up with my partner Toner here. One thing that you're not going to be able to see off the screen here, you kind of see it on the far right, is our Resto Shaman, Wind Fury, is using his Earth Elemental in order to taunt the Psychophages to gather them up so that they don't come over to where we are and cause trouble. Because they'll come over to where we are and they'll cast Devour Thoughts, and then we have to use CC on them, and it makes it kind of chaotic and inconsistent. But Earth Ellie here, very nice and useful to keep those Psychophages on the far right of the screen. Usually right here you'd have maybe like a Brewmaster who can just use the Ox statue instead of Earth Elemental, which serves the same purpose, but we don't have one of those because I'm a Windwalker monk. So deal with this Paranoia. Make sure that you turn your camera around. Don't get dragged into a neuron and die. That can be very bad. Mindgrass here, so we're going to get pulled back very shortly, and then we're going to get the fourth spawn of tentacles, which I'm going to use Karma and TOD because there's going to be Eternal Torment that is going to come out, and I'm going to funnel my Karma damage into my TOD with Stormwrath and Fire enabled. Additionally, there's a lot of Psychophages. You're going to see a Mass Grip here, and I'm going to sweep. We call the CC out. I'm going to sweep after the Mass Grip, which is a 5-second stun, and then we're going to AoE everything down, ideally killing the Bash Tentacle first, but you can't always win. Additionally, I'm going to try to do a Whirling Dragon Punch bug here on all these about 6 psychophages, which I think I do manage to do correctly. All those guys are down, and now we're moving on to phase 2. We just have to clean up these spike tentacles. Psychus Team 2 is about to come up. Here they go. Sun's the boss. Now we have Vuln 2. Have some psychophages. Here I just cleave the boss with Fist of Fury while hitting the psychophages. I'm making sure that I focus the boss when I can, but just getting free cleave on the psychophages to kill them pretty quickly. Having Ring of Peace here is pretty nice in case the psychophages for some reason make it over to the group that's stacked on the square to knock them back. But now we're making our way into phase 2. Phase 2 has a lot of mechanics. Phase 2 is almost a completely different fight than phase 1. So let me try to briefly go over what we're going to expect here in phase 2. So you're going to see in about 2 seconds, there's going to be some Thought Harvesters. Now, I'm going to have Invokes when Blood of the Enemy, Writhing Segment of Dressagath, and SCF available for when these spawn. I'm going to use all those cooldowns there. And then shortly after that happens, we're going to get our first Evoke Anguish, which is a newly introduced mechanic in this phase, which will put a debuff on you, and when the debuff is applied, it will do large damage, about 250k damage to you, and then it'll do ticking damage to you. At the end of the duration of the debuff, you will drop a pool underneath you that will cleave within 8 yards if anyone's near you, so you kind of need to spread out and drop the pool in towards the back of the room, because on subsequent casts of Evoke Anguish, the previous pools that you've dropped in this phase will grow in size, so you need to make sure that you're dropping these pools in a specific way so that at the end of the fight, you're not going to be like without any room, because these pools will last the rest of the fight. It can be kind of scary. Additionally, right after that, we're going to see the first laser beams. So let's see that here. So here comes the first Thought Harvesters. Big cooldowns. Luckily here, I get a Furious 1 proc 2. We have 2 Tigers going ham on 3 targets. You kind of see why Invoke Sweat is actually really good on this fight. Lines up pretty well. But then here comes Evoke Anguish. I'm going to roll out and place my pool in my assigned spot, heal up a little bit, and then I'm going to use Flying Serpent Kick over these Evoke Anguishes, because for the first few seconds that the pools exist, or like a first second and a half of those pools exist, they will not damage you. I'm going to clean up these Thought Harvesters, and here comes the second Evoke Anguish after the I-Beam. Make sure you don't get hit by this I-Beam. If you get hit by the I-Beam, it will do a large amount of damage to you and fear you, which will almost certainly mean that you are dead. So second Evoke Anguish, we're going to drop in front of the previous Evoke Anguishes, and then afterwards we're going to move to the right. And then after that, we're going to get Paranoia, so you have to spread. Constantly mechanics happening in this phase. So I'm going to spread over here. I get matched with Chrysodan, a fellow melee. We're going to move over here. And now we have to go far. We have to go to the opposite of where... We want to go to the opposite direction of where the line is pointing, so it's because that's where it indicates where we're being dragged towards. Okay. Now I'm going to move to the left here, because I'm going to be placing my Anguish to right next to these other Anguishes. Additionally, you saw me use Diffuse Magic there because of the initial cast does a lot of damage. I want to reduce that damage as much as I possibly can. Then I'm going to roll to the right, and here come the second set of Thought Harvesters for this phase. I'm going to try to do as much cleave as I possibly can to these, because these Thought Harvesters, for whatever reason for us, we're living way too long comparatively to how they should have been living. I use Touch of Karma on this Evoke Anguish to live, and here's a very dangerous part, is when right as this Evoke Anguish is fading, these I-beams are going to spawn, and we have to move away from them. So for me, I drop mine in the front left here, next to X, and then I just roll to the side to make sure that I can cleave these Thought Harvesters while these I-beams are happening. If I get trapped behind the I-beams, which can be kind of RNG, because the I-beams can spawn in slightly different positionings, either a little bit behind or forward, and you can't really control that. Luckily here, we managed to make it across, so now we're going to be hitting these Thought Harvesters as best we can. I'm going to hit Blood of the Enemy on 4 targets and try to just focus down these Thought Harvesters, because again, they're pretty high in HP. We don't want to get another Harvest Thoughts to go off on these two. Now here is where this attempt for me goes off the rails. I start to panic a bit. I want these Harvest Thoughts to not go off, because we've wiped to these going off many times, and I was tired of seeing it go off. I am linked with Filori. He is to the far left of me. And additionally, right after we get linked here, we have to deal with the I-beams. So I see him, I try to roll to him best I can. I believe he uses cloak so he doesn't get affected by it, or he just, it was missing. And here's where I mess up. I moved to my right for some reason. I don't know why I did this, but I did. I could have lived here. I had Tiger's Lust up. I had my cloak. I was slowed by my cloak, but my corruption, but I had ways out of this, and I ended up dying. Pretty bad by me. Pretty bad mistake. I should not have died there. I had a lot of ways to live. Also, this is where I would use my Invoke Swen, but I'm not alive. But I get Battle Res because we have a Battle Res, and I use Invoke Swen immediately and start DPSing these guys down. We don't want this cast to go off either. Luckily, they die. Use my Augment Room, and now that's pretty much this phase done. This phase is pretty much complete. Now we're going to be going into the secret mythic phase, which isn't very exciting as a whole, but it's certainly something. So we're going to go over here. We're going to count down 3, 2, 1, go. We go down, and now we have to deal with our good old friend, the Void Spawn Annihilator. So initially, right off the bat in this phase, so there's going to be some bombs in this phase that you need to, what you do is you physically click on them, and it consumes your Heart of Azeroth that you see below my player frame in order to defuse, or to defuse this bomb, because if you don't defuse the bombs, they'll explode and do proximity damage, and if you have more than, I want to say 1 up, you'll most likely just wipe the raid. But as soon as we go down here, it's already started the cast, so I'm going to use diffuse magic to reduce the amount of damage that comes out from this one. And because it's proximity damage, ideally you're parked your butt against the wall here so you take less damage from it. And shortly, you're going to see a dark matter happen. Dark matter is where he's going to channel here and leave void zones on the ground. I have to click my bomb here. We click this diffuse. Now we're going to wait for these void zones to disappear. And now we're going to go over and kill this guy as best we can. We want to ideally kill him before the 5th cleansing protocol, I believe, because when the 5th happens, we have no more necks left to dispel it, to diffuse those, and then we will die immediately. People are moving out with this Annihilate debuff. What Annihilate does is puts this giant purple circle around you, and then you get a healing absorb shield that also has a duration. Once the debuff either falls off or is healed off, it'll put the circle down, and after a few seconds, it'll explode. So ideally, just move out of the raid with that and don't cleave any people down. Discord notification. So I'm going to use Touch of Karma on that explosion, and use all my rest of my cooldowns, Touch of Death, and just get this boss down as soon as possible to make sure that we can kill him before these lots of the bombs happen. Ideally, you want to kill him before or as this dark matter is happening, because the melee and the range are going to have a hard time doing damage during this phase. So luckily, we get him down, I think, just in time before the bomb spawn. And here we're going to do a countdown. I'll back up a little bit here. Once this guy dies, he's gonna spawn a gateway that allows you to leave. But we're gonna do a countdown. What we're gonna do is we're gonna auto run into the gateway and then click it as we're auto running, and you're gonna see why in a moment. So it'll sound here real quick.
2, 1, go.
Cliff shot. I didn't check. You see us just moving towards the boss because we're auto running, but it's a cinematic. Kind of silly to watch, but it allows us to get to the boss and start hitting him. I'm going to use Invoke Swen here immediately and start hitting these Thought Harvesters. They're going to spawn, and use the rest of my cooldowns, because in this phase, for a while, I'm going to have a shitload of downtime. So right after this Harvest Thoughts goes out and we all soak it, I'm going to head over to the far left here. I get slowed by my cloak. I'm going to put a Transcendence down as I'm moving over to this area so that I can escape. I'm going to place my pool. I'm going to teleport. I'm going to use my roll and my serpent kick, all the mobility that I have, to reach the Thought Harvesters once again, to get past these I-beams so that I don't die to these I-beams. And then shortly after, right here, we're going to get Evoke Anguish, we're going to drop a Windrush Totem, and we're going to spread to the right. And I have to go all the way to about near Skull-ish area. And now I'm going to roll past this. Unfortunately, I rolled a little bit too late, and I almost die here. Almost die. Very risky. I should not have done that. I end up immediately health stoning so I don't die. I get lay on hands. Get matched up with Paranoia, my buddy Hrothgar's, and we have to be close. Ideally here, And this is ideal. Ideally, you want to be matched with this Paranoia and be close, because this third Evoke Anguish, you want to drop in the back of the room, and it would really suck to be pulled towards the boss and have to go all the way back. So this is ideal for a couple reasons. As I just said, also because it allows the melee to hit the boss, you get some more damage on the boss, which is really nice as well. So we're gonna hit this boss, get dragged back. And now we're going to drop our Evoke Anguish in the back of the room here. And wait a second. And then right after this, we're going to get the next set of Thought Harvesters that spawn in this phase. Now, these ones we're not going to plan to kill, but we are going to soak, immunity soak, this first Harvest Thoughts so we don't go insane here. But afterwards, we're going to let the cast go off. We don't care. We're going to get our fourth Evoke Anguish. Now, for this Evoke Anguish, we're just planning on don't drop it in melee. Whatever you do, don't drop it in melee. Drop it as far back as possible. Unfortunately, someone does drop it in melee. Not great. But from this point on, all we have to do is focus the boss and kill him. Now, I do mistime my cooldowns here. You should not use your cooldowns here. This is very bad. Do not use your cooldowns here. Because in approximately like 5 seconds, we're about to go insane on purpose and gain a damage buff. So we're going to let these Harvest Thought casts go off. Simultaneously, we're going to get Paranoia, and we're going to purposely stand on top of each other to make everyone go insane. Because when you go insane, you get a debuff for about, I believe it's 20 seconds. That gives you 25% damage and 25% healing, and allows you to just nuke the boss. This is when you would want to use your cooldowns. I use my cooldowns about 15 seconds too early, and it's not great. But unfortunately, that mistake doesn't matter. We get the set of I-beams, we get lucky spawn, don't have to move, and we just yeet the boss and kill him. And that is Mythic ZOTH from Windwalker's perspective. It took us about a couple weeks to get this down. It took me a while to figure out the timings of everything. But once we got into the last phase, it seemed pretty straightforward. But that, alas, that is the end of our journey in Mythic ny'alotha for these guides. I do plan on returning with these guides next expansion in the next tier. I may not be playing a Windwalker next expansion, or at least in raids. It depends on how good they are and what the changes they make. But that's pretty much it for this video. Not much else to talk about. I will see you guys. This video series will return next year, whenever that happens. I am excited for Shadowlands Alpha and excited for what the future holds for this game. But if you have any comments or questions, make sure to leave them down below. I'll try to answer the best that I can. Make sure to like the video if you like it, and make sure to subscribe if you aren't. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.